Yeah. So I was asked to talk about forgiveness by Tzvi, and I'm very angry about that. No, just.
Get over it.
That's it. All right, class dismissed. Yes. Get over it. That was my mother's advice. So, I think forgiveness topic is a good one to really hit upon even a broader issue. When because when we're in a lot of anger and resentment, that's a great example. I don't know about for you, but I know for me, there have been times when I have had some strong feelings about other people and things that I perceive that they have done to me, and if anybody else has ever been in that place, we know that it can be a pretty gripping place to be. It can really, hold on to us, and it can be, and of course we know that there are people out there who hold on to things like that for quite a long time, sometimes for years, decades, lifetimes, absolutely. And so the question is, how do we forgive? We know it's a mitzvah. There's certainly mitzvahs about forgiveness.
Where's that mitzvah?
Well, for example, it may not be actually one of the 613, but we know, for example, if somebody comes to you and asks you for mechila, you're obligated to forgive them, unless you're the Rabbi and you have a particular reason. But there is absolute. Chazal tell us that we are, mahu rachum af ato rachum, mahu chanu, right? That we are supposed to be tolerant and forgiving of other people, just as Hashem is. Obviously, He's very forgiving. Otherwise, none of us would be here. Okay, so. True. So the question, how do we move? How do we move, and you're stuck in it? What are you going to tell somebody? Get over it? So I know that I have had experiences, and they've taught me a lot about forgiveness. And so when people ask me how, here's my answer. I have no idea. That's the bad news. There's the good news and the bad news. The bad news is I don't know how I forgive anybody. The good news is apparently I didn't need to know. After all, I can ask you the same question. Have you ever forgiven somebody? Do you know how? Because if you think you do, then I would ask you, if you forgave them on Wednesday, why didn't you do it on Tuesday? What kept you waiting so long? Yeah.
I would venture to say I benefit from holding on to that resentment.
Right. Well, so I'd like to suggest that there are two basic ingredients that I think have been helpful for me when it comes to issues like this. And I think forgiveness is just an example of a bigger issue, which is, how do I move on? Yeah, I can. Is everybody? Do we need the microphone?
Yeah.
That's helpful. Makes me feel more important. So that's good.
You're running for office.
Ooh, now I feel.
Luke, choose the Force.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your voice. You're speaking in British now.
Okay, so now would you like me to just sing to you instead? Yeah.
The mic stand is coming.
The mic stand's coming. Oh, okay.
So you
That's
don't have to
good.
be Frank Sinatra.
It's getting tired. So there's two things that have been helpful to me that I think apply to a wider range of things than just forgiveness. One of them is that, I think, and this addresses what you just brought up, which is I think you need to know that forgiveness is a good idea, obviously. And not everybody does. Not everybody thinks that way. Some people think I'm going to hold on to it because, either because it feels good or because I need to, because what's going to happen to me if I don't, hold on to it. I could get victimized or something. But one thing that I resentment, the best definition of resentment I've ever heard is it's the poison that you drink hoping the other person will die. Okay, and this goes into a bigger issue that we've been speaking about, that I think the Rosenblatt spoke about, and we've been touching upon all along, which is, how important to you is a state of well-being. Do you appreciate, that being in a nice feeling in life is a value? So I've seen enough about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've seen, does this actually help? It's still, even I don't, do I have to stand like this?
It goes up.
Oh. It feels so good, it has to be raised. This is great. All right. Give me a minute.
You want it down?
Yeah, but I think you pick up.
Just right. Let's see. A little bit more, a little bit more. There we go. There, perfect. Perfect. Okay. So I think the one. So I had, there was a particular person in my neighborhood at one point who did something that I was really in a tizzy about. I considered that person to be very disloyal, kind of backstabbing what this person did, and that's like the worst thing that you do, or the worst thing I can think about somebody. And I remember I used to obsess about this person. I was, I didn't even have to be around them. I could just anytime the thought popped in my head, I would go, the washing machine would go, and I'd be thinking about how much this person, how evil they were, and how terrible, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that went on for a certain amount of time. And I just remember being struck, because one day I was at an event. There was food being served, and we were sort of online, for the food, and this person was next to me. And I looked at this person, and I had absolutely no bad feelings towards them whatsoever. It was done. It was gone. Now, by the way, it didn't mean that I forgot what happened. That's not what forgiveness is to me. It doesn't mean I actually erased my memory. But the bad feelings about it, all the judgment about it, that was gone. And I literally could wish this person Gesundheit. Now, what fascinated me was that I did nothing. I mean, I have no clue what I did. Now, a lot of people would say, well, you let time pass. Time passes. But that's not really an adequate explanation as far as I'm concerned, because that's like saying, how do you get from New York to Chicago? Let time pass. Okay? There has to be a vehicle that gets you there. There's something that gets you there. But on the other hand, what? What got me there? I don't know what got me there.
Maybe it's your thinking.
Well, but certainly wasn't any thinking that I did, that I did, that's for sure. In other words, I didn't think my way out of it. Okay, and I don't think I could have. I mean, there was no, I don't believe that was, certainly that's not what happened. And yet I got the results. So it's an interesting thing. Yeah.
I think there is something for the time I did, because a physical wound, even if you do nothing, it heals. So when someone hurts you, it's a psychic wound.
Look deeper. Look deeper. You're missing the mechanism. It looks like, but just like if I don't know about automobiles, I might think that, oh yeah, you let time pass, so now you're in Chicago. Right. But there is, I believe there is a mechanism in there. And I'd like to talk about what that is. But I think if I could identify the two things that allowed me to get to forgiveness, one of them was definitely, I thought it was a good idea. I realized that living with resentment, I'm the casualty. It's the poison that I drink, that you drink thinking, poison I drink thinking, hoping you're going to die. I'm drinking the poison. So that's obviously very important, because otherwise I'm just going to hold on to it because it looks like a good idea. But I think the thing that really, I hate standing here with this thing. I feel like I'm on America's Got Talent or something. Yes.
Everybody else.
Vote for me.
Everybody else.
I think the thing that really helped me also was the realization that I can forgive, that it's within my capacity. But what does that mean? So what I'm suggesting here is that, and this really ties into a much bigger issue that we've been speaking about all along. There is within us already the capacity to forgive, right? So you said thought, but you're right. It was a thought. Obviously, if I'm feeling differently, it's because I have different thinking. That's a given. We've already established that that's the only way I could feel different about anything, is because my thought has changed. But the beautiful thing that I want to kind of put in front of you is that I didn't change it. I didn't need to change it. What I did do was I was willing to let go and move on. That was all that really needed to be. And that's why I mentioned that A, I thought it was a good idea to move on, and B, I thought it was possible to move on. Thinking it's possible and knowing how are two very, very different things. Yes?
Why did you do it?
Because, as I said, resentment is the poison that I drink, thinking you will die. It's insanity. I'm resentful of you. I'm feeling, I mean, it's unpleasant. And you think I'd like sitting there, stewing? And you're busy, whistling Dixie and having a great time, So,
A little disconnected.
yes, I feel very disconnected right now. All right. Okay.
Just one thing after another.
I think I pressed this button. The one that says, don't press this button. So you see that's an important thing, and that's by the way, that's something that really the principles have really helped me with that, because what I've come to see is that the state of mind that I'm in is so valuable. When my state of mind is low, I don't bring the resources that I have to bear in my life. I'm in a diminished capacity. Not to mention it's just downright unpleasant on top of it. So realizing that the problems are not out in the world, but the problems are generally where I am. In other words, when I look, it used to be I'd look out at the world and I'd see problems. Oh, there's the problems. Today I realize it's not what I'm seeing, it's which floor I'm seeing it from. Okay? And so that is what I call my state of mind, my state of consciousness, my level of awareness, whatever you want to call it, whatever word works for you. But I don't really want to throw that in the trash bin. It doesn't look like a good idea to me, let's just say that. Now, I often do throw it in the trash bin. I go down like everybody else, I go up. But that doesn't look like a great idea to me. In the past, it looked like it wasn't such an issue because I was too busy looking at the stuff out there to realize that there's this other issue called my state of mind. But today I look at the state of mind much more, because that to me is really the issue. The stuff, it looks totally different depending upon whether I look at it from the basement or whether I'm looking at it from the penthouse, right? That changes quite a bit. So I come to value my own state of mind. I come to value, that's the goose that lays the golden eggs. When I'm in a great place, I have wisdom, I have insight, I have creativity, I have much more of the things that I'm looking for in life. So that's number one. But number two is I realized, something? It's possible. It's possible for me to forgive. How? I have no idea. Why is that not important, whether I have an idea? Because I don't need to have an idea. Because forgiveness is an insight. And an insight, it means there's some wisdom inside of me that I get a glimpse of. But it's already inside of me. I don't need it to go anywhere. What I do need to do is get out of the way. And so that's why we've been speaking all along here about you don't need techniques, you don't need tools, you don't need to learn how to put the principles into effect, because it's already inside of you. It's already there. Everything you need is already inside of you. What's the proof? Well, how else could you ever experience it? we've already established everything comes from within me. So I better have a pretty good, I better have a pretty good storehouse in there. Otherwise, it's like everything you're going to have for this cruise is better be on the cruise already. Otherwise, you're out of luck, right? So, everything that I need in life better be in me, since it can't come from anyplace else. Yeah. So, yeah.
When you talk about the evil that, say, somebody did to you, I don't know what the story was, but somebody does evil to me, yeah, or that I perceive as evil, and most probably a lot of people subscribe to that. Now, forgiving that person, to me, I've always subscribed to that, is saying that this evil is okay. Holding on, that's a trap I get
Can I
into.
answer?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to answer a couple of people, that's wonderful. The thing about, well, time passes and then it's okay. Not only your mind, but your heart, your emotions get into this whole thing. When something happens to you that's not good, someone hurt you, or evil, whatever it is, I don't care, and you feel it, it hurts your heart. Emotionally you feel it, your heart is hurt. And it forms, it's like a plug, and it stays in your heart. And time passing just pushes it down more. It's not gone, it's there. It has to come out some way. It'll come out by you acting out, bursting out anger one day. It'll come out and you don't feel good, your bones hurt, you can't sleep. But it has to come out some way. When you forgive, or you don't have to forgive the person. I mean, like it's been said, that person just goes on their merry way, doing what they want. But you're forgiving yourself for not forgiving them, for keeping this anger. You don't need other people to decide whether you should be angry with this person or not, to agree with you.
So I think he might be asking a slightly different question, which is he's concerned that you're sending a message when you forgive somebody that what they did was all right. And I just want to clarify, or to yourself. So forgiveness, as I see it, is a separate issue. In other words, you may have been very inappropriate. I believe this person was, by the way. I've forgiven the person, but I believe the person was inappropriate, that what they did was not proper. I believe that, and by the way, I'm aware of that, and I may not put myself in the same position, right? None of those are a steer to forgiveness, okay? Forgiveness means all of the judgment and the anger that I had around it is gone, okay? I see the person's innocence to some degree. In other words, I see that they didn't wake up that day saying, how am I going to ruin Mark Spiro's life? Okay? They're doing the best they can. Okay? They made a mistake. And I can let go of those bad feelings. I can see somebody has been inappropriate. I can see somebody's been very inappropriate. I can be very loving and very caring and still feel that it's inappropriate. And I'm suggesting that that's a much nicer and much more effective way to go through life. Yes, because it eats away at you. You're right. It eats away at you. It goes, and that's the proof, by the way. Time is not the issue. It's not time, okay? Because time could pass, as we've already established, and you can still be resentful for decades. So obviously, it's not time. What is the issue? What is the mechanism? The wisdom inside of you. And that could take a decade, potentially, and it could also take a second. Do you understand that? And that's why I really want to caution you against the time issue. Because as Sid Banks used to say, how he used to say, how far away is mental health? One thought. If you can find that one thought, your experience can change. I had an experience once that illustrated this to me very powerfully. I was going into a Kabbalat Shabbat at there is a beautiful home. I love Kabbalat Shabbat. It's my favorite time of the week. And I was going to dive in this beautiful home overlooking Mount Rainier, and it was just like, it was like, I just, really liked that. And that particular Erev Shabbos had been like the Erev Shabbos from hell. And everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And anyway, I came into Kabbalat Shabbat, to Mincha, and I was absolutely a wreck. And I had this thought, which was something like, bummer, like this isn't gonna be pretty, I'm just not gonna be present for this. And it was it was just a bummer. And whatever, so an insight hit me. Now once again, this is what I'm trying to get across to you. I didn't start working on the 10 steps to having great kavanah in Mincha. Okay, I didn't start figuring it out. I just sort of resigned myself to it, to be quite honest. But then a thought came. It was a special delivery gift thought, which I like to refer to also as an insight. And it was a really simple thing, by the way. That's what insights are. They're generally not Nobel Prize winning ideas. They're generally extremely simple, okay? But in their simplicity is their power. And here was the thought that came to me. I could have had everything happen to me that happened to me today, and I could be in a fantastic place. And here's how you know it was an insight, because I literally went from being in the basement to not only being in a good place, but I went into a phenomenal place. It took 1 second. 1 second, my reality changed completely. And that's what this is what I'm pointing at. I want to point out the fact that it's not it's not far from you. Karov l'cha, it's very close to you. We run all around the world looking for what we're looking for, and we forget that it's all right here, and that's good news, because where else could it possibly ever come from? And it's not a matter of time. If you think it's going to be a matter of time, it'll probably take as much time as you think it should take. But we have all of the wisdom and all of everything that Hashem commands us in His Torah that we should do or be. It's only because He's pointing to us and telling us this is what's already inside of you. You know how to do this. Proof is, I did it. If I could do it, anybody could do it. Because I didn't really do it. I didn't do it. Here's what I did. I allowed it. And that's, in my experience, so much of what the principles has given me. It's given me the awareness that allows me to sort of get out of my own way and allow all that healthy, nice stuff to show up. Does that make sense?
How do you get out of it?
So how do you get out of the way? It's a great question.
But we first have to realize that you are in there.
Yes.
That helps a lot. Until you realize that, and forget about it.
So here's what it looks like to me. Better question is maybe, how do I get in my own way? And I'd like to suggest that it has to do with me being enamored with my crazy thinking. That's usually how I get in my own way. In other words, everybody gets their crazy thinking from time to time. It's part of what it means to be human. We all have it, okay? We have our shtus, our craziness. The difference is that in the past, before I learned the three principles, I didn't think it was my shtus. I thought it was reality. I thought it was the problems of the world, or your problem, or, and of course that meant that I was living in the outside world trying to fix it, or ruminating about it, or however it panned out for me. But the end result was always basically the same, which is around and around and around we go, right? Think of it like this. There's like a stream going past you, right? And it's all moving just fine, and you stick your hand in it. Or you drop a giant boulder in it, or maybe you dropping some concrete or whatever. And guess what happens? It starts to build up. It starts to become more than a stream. It starts to become a little pool. If you put enough in there, it becomes a lake. Okay? That's the way it would work. And sometimes still does, by the way, because I grab onto things still. But that's what we do. That's how we get in our way. We seize stuff because we're really enamored with our thinking, because we don't really see it as our thinking. We see it as truth. Well, it's truth, I gotta deal with it, right? Let me pick it up and look at it from all different angles and spend a lot of time thinking about it and, maybe write a few books about it, right? That's what we do, right? But having learned the three principles, I'm a lot more aware, not all the time, but usually inevitably at some point along the line, it kind of occurs to me that, wait a minute, there's not a big problem out there. There's a kind of a low mood in here. I'm not in a great place right now. And when I'm not in a great place, things tend to look, kind of down and dire and problematic. And so my interest in those things, my interest level has gone from here, like, this is it, boy, to like, well, why would I be so interested in me when I'm having my moment of craziness? I mean, after all, how many of you like to have conversations with crazy people? Right? So I realize that, sometimes I'm a crazy person. Do I really have to get into it? Yes, lady in the back. Oh, you do? Okay. Well, I mean, it could be a good source of entertainment, and if that works for you, that's fine. I mean, it can be fascinating, but.
Are you ignoring the craziness? Is that the process? You're ignoring it, or are you correcting some faulty thinking?
So that's exactly what I'm trying to say to you, is that I didn't know how to correct my resentment. Try to correct your resentment when you're in resentment. That's like trying to to clean up your hard drive from your hard drive. I teach at Microsoft. I have to get these analogies in, right? So I guess I'm not talking to techies over here. I got a better example here. Yeah.
A lot of blank looks.
Right over our head.
All the Microsoft people are like, oh, thank you. Oh, that's great. I got it. Yeah, Seattle. We'll give either computer examples or coffee examples. Yeah.
How about going in reverse while you're full speed and going front ahead?
What do you mean?
I'm saying putting your gear, while you're driving them on the highway, put your gears in the back way.
Not a good idea. But is that, you giving me a driving tip? This analogy? Okay. No, so here's the thing. What I'm suggesting is I didn't need to know how to work. I'm in my corrupt thinking. When you're crazy thinking looks really good. There's a great story of a guy who gets a flat tire outside of an insane asylum. You know that one? Right? So for those of you who don't know it, so he gets a flat tire, so he changes the tire, he's about to put the tire back on, and some car drives by and knocks the bolts out of the way. He's got a tire and no bolts. One of the inmates from the insane asylum is looking out the window, he says, psst, he says, take a bolt off the other 3 tires and put it onto the other tire. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, wait a minute. That's brilliant. He goes, what are you doing in an insane asylum? The guy says, I may be crazy, but I'm not stupid. Okay, that's the way we are. Right? When we're crazy, when I am in the midst of my stuff, when I'm in the midst of my craziness, literally, I could argue my case in front of the Supreme Court. I mean, I am brilliant. I am absolutely brilliant. I mean, when I'm typing that flame, you know what flame mail is? Flame mail is that email you're sending because you finally decide to tell somebody how you really feel, right? I mean, it is Pulitzer Prize material when I'm typing it, right? That's the problem, right? And the next day, it doesn't look quite that good, right? Whew, hopefully it was in the drafts box and not in the sent box. You get to see it either way. It's either in the drafts box or in the sent. Always choose the drafts box. Tell me. I still make the mistake sometimes. I'm so excited in the moment, right? But the point is you can't figure your stuff out when you're in the middle of your stuff. You're in distortion. You're in the distortion. But the point is you don't need to. That's the better news. The better news is when we just see, hey, you know something, I'm not in a great place right now, and it becomes less interesting. This is not self-control. Craziness doesn't look that interesting to me. I know some people get entertained by it, but craziness, at least in my head, and the people I really want to be close to, is not that entertaining for me most of the time. It generally has unpleasant side effects. So I generally am just not that interested in craziness, but the beautiful part about it is what that does is it opens up a space. it opens a space for insight. We have wisdom inside of us. But you see, we learned this from Eliyahu Hanavi, right? We learned this from Eliyahu Hanavi, that when the voice of God finally came to him, right? Lo barash, right? It wasn't in the noise, it wasn't in the fire, it wasn't in the lightning. What was it? As a kol demama daka, right? That's the voice of God. Do you know you have a voice of God inside of you? It's called your neshama. It doesn't scream. It doesn't compete. It's very quiet, okay? That's why I said it's not Nobel Prize winning ideas. Insights are just, the power of the insight is not because it's some complex idea, it's because it's something you really see. You really see it, but the beauty of it is it's right there when you stop getting interested in all the other stuff. You make a space. I gave this story to somebody earlier, Rabbi David Aaron. Everybody knows Rabbi David Aaron who is, right? So Rabbi David Aaron, one of my first teachers, in one of his books, he tells a story about how he wandered into a Kabbalah shir. I think he was looking for the bathroom. I think it was before he was religious himself. And he was, I guess, trying to make it to the bathroom, but the Rebbe caught a glimpse of him and called him up to the, can you imagine this, talk about embarrassing, right? All the Talmidim are there, and the Rebbe calls him up, and he says, Nu, who are you, where are you from, whatever. So he sends him on his way. Before he's able to get, the Rebbe calls him back again, and he's holding out an apple. And so here he is looking at the Rebbe, he looks at the Rebbe, he looks at the apple, he looks at everybody looking at him. He's not quite sure what to do, right? Poor guy just wants to go to the bathroom. Anyway, so finally he makes the decision. He walks up to take and I need both hands for this. He walks up to take the apple, and all of the Talmidim go, they go like this. Make a space for it, okay? That's what we're talking about here. We all want to take it. We want to figure it out. We want to control it. We want to, right? But the bad news is I don't know how to teach you. The good news is I don't have to, because it's all right there. When you stop working overtime, most people are working overtime. People don't wake up in the morning and say, I think I want to ruin my own life. I think I want to be miserable. Boy. I mean, if there's anything I've ever seen about any person I've ever worked with, it's they're genuinely trying the absolute best they can. No question about it, okay? And what's usually the problem is they're working way too hard, ironically. And by the way, that's Yitzhahara. Yitzhahara is a brilliant strategist. He understands, right? Nobody's going to wake up and say, I think I want to ruin my life. He understands that, right? So what do? We get all concerned and all preoccupied with all the pressing issues of the world that we have created, but we don't know. We created it. And the end result is we're so busy up here that beautiful voice of wisdom that's inside of us, we don't see it. We don't hear it. Yeah. How do you define craziness?
How do I define
Craziness? Craziness?
What does it mean to you when you say it?
I say it in an endearing way, meaning, when I'm driving
Or
down.
in a frenzy?
That's one way. It could be that. It could be me, getting all insecure about something. It could be me, just living in my, how I identify it is generally it comes in a very negative feeling. It comes in some kind of a negative feeling. It's like I'm insecure. I'm feeling very limited. I have no sense of humor. I'm very, overly serious, overly preoccupied. Those are all, it comes in a feeling. It usually tells me that I'm not in a great place. What's that?
Does that mean crazy?
Well, I'm just calling it crazy. You can call it whatever you want. The Chazal call it ruch shtus, which means basically temporary insanity. Yeah, I say it in an enduring way. We're all, when I say crazy, it means you're a card-carrying member of the human race. What's that?
We're losing ourselves, our sense of
We're not in our wisdom.
knowledge.
Yeah, we're not in our wisdom. Don't let the words confuse you. I really, there's no judgment on that point at all. It's cute. We're cute when we're crazy a lot of times. Yeah.
I saw the slide, it might have been in Twerski's was change of heart can happen in an instant.
Exactly.
And it was such a powerful thing because I was with an overbearing relative, and I kind of didn't know how to get out of it. I remember that the fact that change of heart can happen in instance meant that was a possibility. I didn't have to struggle with it.
Yeah.
Because from one instance, I could put from here to there, and then I was thinking just now, Yeshua Hashem Karabayim, just.
Exactly.
That's just that concept of mind.
That's right.
And then I was also thinking, when you just said that you make a space, you get yourself out of the way, that the Yiddish word Einfall, well, like, what does that really mean? You make a space. When you make a space, then you can have something can drop in. That's what an Einfall is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know Yiddish, so.
I German word is
Einfall is such a fold,
It
something
falls
falls.
in,
Right.
but how can it
Yeah.
fall in if it's all plugged up? So you make a space and then it just falls.
That's right, that's right. By the way, this is like, I like to say the principles for me is not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. This is a direction that I'm looking all the time, which it never occurred to me before. To me, it was always, I have my brain. My brain is my control. It's like I have a joystick, I can think my way through it, I can understand it, there's nothing greater, than that. But what I've come to see is, no, there's a whole different direction, because there's wisdom inside of me. But my work in overtime is getting in my own, that's what I define as getting in my own way. And so it's true not just of forgiveness, it's true of so many areas where we need a little bit of insight. The forgiveness is a result of insight. That's all it was. There was an insight there, this person is not the evil person I thought they were, and they're really innocent, and I could see it. And the power of insight, of course, is it's way more impactful than what my little brain arrives at. My little brain arrives at stuff, wonderful, mazel tov, right? Insight hits me here, right? My little brain is up here, and this is what we call the largest distance in the universe, okay? Between these two things. So, any questions on, yeah?
What you're describing, the process, getting out of your undesirable state of how you feel, it sounds that it's passive. We're waiting.
Yes, it is.
Waiting for that wisdom. How? So.
By the way, first of all, I don't look at it as getting out of any unpleasant state, because I don't really have a need to get out of unpleasant states.
You want to pass. You want to be over. You want to.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be in forgiveness, but that's a little bit different than I have to run away from where I am. I accept it. I'm not in forgiveness right now, and that's where I am. And it's okay, because I can't force that, right? If you feel like you have to get out of it, it means you don't really understand what it is.
Is it helpful to be able to speed up the process?
What?
The process of.
I know what the process is. How do you speed it up?
By how we think.
You tell us.
Right, but the problem is, it would be all very nice theoretically, but what I've experienced is that's what I thought. And rather than it helping me, much more often than not, it ended up just being me spinning my wheels. And you know what happens when you...
I believe you said it before. You said this guy who hurt you or whatever, you said that at some point you were able to tell yourself that he's got, he has his problems, and
I'm always counting on people forgetting what I said before, so they don't hold it against me. Most of my students forget everything.
You drew upon
What's that?
compassion. You drew upon compassion for this other person. He's got his problems. He's limited.
Okay.
And he ended up hurting me.
That was the insight I had. That was my insight, but that wasn't me applying compassion. That was me getting an insight. Prior to that, I could have said to myself, I really would like to forgive this person. I really should, and I'm really being a bit of a hardhead not doing it. And all of that wouldn't have really helped very much. It would have probably made me, A, unforgiving, and then beating myself up on top of it for not being forgiving. And that's what a lot of people do when they try to figure it all out, right? Now, I'm not here to tell you that your little mind, the little processing mind, doesn't have a role in life. It does. It's a gift of Hashem. It's a very important part of our being. But I believe we're really addicted to it. We're addicted. That's our go-to. Constantly. Let me figure it out. Let me be the one. Because you're right. It is a certain amount of letting go. You called it passivity. It is a certain amount of letting go. The thing about insight is it doesn't work on my calendar. It doesn't work on my time frame. I don't control it. There's a little bit of emunah in there. There's a little bit of an understanding that Hashem has put the wisdom inside of me. Today I don't see it. I don't know when I will, but I know I'm capable of it, and I would love to. And then the rest is I'm sort of in Hashem's hands. You know, when will He give me that gift? And you know what the real beautiful thing about this, and we'll talk about this more, is it becomes part of my relationship with Hashem. Now this is to me, this is a large piece of what I consider to be a spiritual life, is rather than living with a genius known as myself, I live with Hashem more, who actually gives me gifts. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. In one hand, you're saying there are no techniques, it's inside you. But on the other hand, as I'm listening to your stories, you have some paths that remind you of what's inside you, or your inside.
Not a
For
technique,
example,
though.
the Kabbalat Shabbat, you're saying, you know what, I could have had a terrible day and be
But that was an insight.
Right, but what kind of train of thought can bring us back to our inside, or can guide us to our Kol Dmana Daka?
So I'll say it again. I don't know how to make insights happen. I wish I could find the insight button. You know, insight button. Boom, I need an insight. You know, it's like refilling my coffee. No, I wish I did. So what I'm suggesting is the most helpful thing for me has been that I spend a whole lot less time splashing in the water. You know, like a beautiful, think of a deep, deep lake, right? You know, when you're all up on the surface, you know, splashing away, you don't see very deeply into it, right? But when it's like glass, right, all of a sudden you can see down into it. That's what we're talking about, right? I'm a lot less active, really, believe it or not. I do a lot less thinking, or at least volitional thinking, than as one therapist I knew once said, thinking, whenever you'd ask him, what do you think, he'd say, thinking is not one of my vices. Okay, so thinking, I'm trying to do a little bit one of his vices. I'm trying, believe it or not, I'm suggesting that you know, for all of my good intentions, I'm overworking the problem. The wisdom's always there. It's there. It's available to me. I don't see it. The best chance for me to see it is when I'm, you know, a little bit quieter. Usually is when that happens, or when I'm not deliberately trying to. It's a little bit counterintuitive. We call it shower wisdom. You know, go get a gallon of milk from the store around the corner. You've been working on the problem for like a year, and you go take a shower, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is. Right? This is a little gift. Forgiveness is a gift. Yep.
The inverse, though, if you rehash that problem with all the judgments and that angst and emotion, just giving it like oxygen to the fire.
Right.
So if you let go of that, Chazal say, I mean, push it away, forget about it. Or else talk it out to someone, one good person, the right person, let it go.
Okay.
So you see the inverse. What doesn't help is
Yeah, it's like counterintuitive. You know, when you're stuck in a mud patch with your car, your first instinct is to hit the accelerator. But we know that really what happens so often is you get a deeper ditch and a very muddy person standing behind you. Right? Yeah.
I was wondering if you would. I know this relates to forgiving yourself. Could you address that a little bit? That issue.
I've never had anything to forgive myself for.
It's break time, so maybe that could be the last.
Yeah, this will be the last question. I have been warned. The 3-second buzzer is coming up. So I don't think there's really much of a difference. In other words, we have lots of thinking about other people, and it leads sometimes to resentment and anger and judgment. And we have lots of thinking about ourselves that leads to a lot of resentment, anger, and judgment as well. Maybe not, doesn't feel exactly the same, but I think it's relatively similar. And I think that really the same thing applies. I used to be enamored with all the thinking I had about myself and how, you know, my deficiencies and whatnot. And I have been learning, and it's a process, I have been learning that, you know, that's oftentimes telling me a lot more about where I'm looking at it from than what's really true. And I'm able to see more of my own innocence, more of my own good intent. And by the way, I'll end with just letting you know that that doesn't take me farther from self-correction. It's actually the key to self-correction. Because when I have that kind of bitter judgment, there's nothing, I'm broken. There's nothing to correct. I'm broken. It's only when I see that I'm a good person, you know, I'm trying the best I can. I have real shortcomings. I'm still trying to figure out what they are, but I have real shortcomings. And you know what? You know what occurred to me at some point along the line? You can be lovable even with shortcomings. Wow. We can even love people with shortcomings, which is good news for the human race, by the way.
Love ourselves?
I give you permission. Yes. I'm sorry, but I was told that you were not allowed to ask that question. But, okay.
And the shortcomings also were given to us by Hashem.
That's as true as well. The shortcomings were given. Your pekalach was probably, you didn't choose it.
Gifts from Hashem too.
Thank you very much, and I think we're going to take a break, and then we're going to have our visited from Keith and Valda, right?